I think Bhavya. Yeah, it is already. Yeah. Ma'am, we are live.
Okay, please continue.
So, good evening, everyone. It's our great pleasure to welcome you all to the 61st edition of the Cultural Studies Research Forum Public Lecture Series. This evening, we are honored to have as our distinguished speaker Ms. Mousumi Hazra. Before proceeding with her introductory note, let me share a few words about our Cultural Studies Research Forum. It is an initiative by Valat. It is a premier intellectual platform dedicated to fostering critical dialogue at the intersection of literature, society, and theory. Through, through its ongoing series of public lectures, CSRF provides a space for scholars and researchers to dissect contemporary cultural phenomena, bridging the gap between traditional academic inquiry and the evolving complexities of the modern world. It is a pleasure to introduce our resource person for this session. Ms. Hazra is an accomplished academic currently serving as an assistant professor of English at the Inspiria College Knowledge Campus affiliated with Maukat, Maulana Abdul Kalam, if I am not wrong, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad University of Technology. She is also on the cusp of significant milestone, having recently submitted her doctoral thesis to the Department of English at the University of North Bengal, where she has also shared her expertise as a visiting faculty of English at the Department of Law. Ms. Hazra has a prolific record of scholarship with numerous research articles published in both national and international journals and many paper presentations across India. Her commitment to international dialogue in her field is highlighted by her research presentation at a seminar organized by Visible Evidence and hosted by Monash University, Melbourne. Areas of scholarly interest encompass tapestry of feminism and gender studies, cultural studies, Victorian literature, and partition studies as well. Reflecting this depth, she is currently working on book projects focused specially on South Asian feminism. Given her profound scholarly engagement with gender, culture, and power, she is uniquely positioned to lead today's conversation. Without further delay, we invite Ms. Mousumi Hazra to the podium to deliver her talk, which is titled Beyond the City Center, Bargaining Feminisms. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Ms. Mousumi Hazra. Over to you, ma'am.
First of all, just checking, ma'am, if I'm audible and visible at the same time. And I'm
Yes,
also going to share my screen briefly so that I can make you see my PPTs that I've made. Just a minute. Can you see that, ma'am?
Yes,
Okay.
it is visible.
Okay. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for giving me this platform. And I thank CSRF Research Forum. I thank Vallad Education for giving me this platform or giving the researchers and the, encouraging scholarships and creating and curating such a space where people can really talk about what they want to talk about. So the title of my talk, and I thank you, Quill ma'am, for this generous introduction. It was really kind of you. So the title of my talk is Beyond the City's Center, Bargaining Feminisms. So this particular talk is actually, for me, it's kind of an amalgamation or confluence of several micro narratives that I see around, um, several experiential incidents that made me realize about city, about women, about feminism, and most importantly, about the art of bargaining, I would say. But before moving on, just I would like to give some of the key ideas or like leave some questions for you, which is whenever we think of city and women, these two different kind of words, we talk about empowerment automatically. So we assume that city with its liberating, infrastructure, with its opportunities, with its less gender disparity, if we can say so, offers a feminist angle, offers empowerment, offers equality, where women can really be financially independent. First of all, women can access places, women can, visit places, roam around, have coffee, come back from the office, and, be really productive. So this is what an empowered woman looks this is what an empowered woman looks like when it comes to city and women. And I think my long association with this city, Shiliguri, has taught me so much about the places where I can really be feminist, the places where I face patriarchy, and the places where I've been really inquisitive or reluctant, hesitant, with everything in it. So beyond this very conventional linear idea of city and women, what I want to emphasize really in this particular lecture is how we can talk about the other narratives that a city may offer. So the other narratives beyond this narrative of empowered women or liberating spaces. My recent watch of the films Metro in Dino and also the films Life in a Metro. I think you are familiar with these films because these are something that I draw from popular culture. So, Metro in Dino and Life in a Metro are the films which are typically about relationship dynamics, typically about, each and everything that life is made of. Like it talks about love, it talks about hatred, it talks about relationship dynamics, and at the end, it also talks about reconciliation, a resolution. But what actually clicked me when I was watching these movies was how the women character in this particular movies are talking about an emotional arc rather than the economic arc. So they were like how they're falling for dilemma, for confusions, for so many other faculties of of human instinct, if I can say so. They at times suffer from their own decision, they regret, they kind of look back, and they realize a lot. They go through a particular kind of realization. But significantly, when I look at the films with this conception that how can women have a different kind of projection onto the city maps, I really emphasis on how the director, how these films have portrayed women in terms of their positionality, in terms of their relationship with the cityscapes. That makes me recall right now one of the scenes that Life in a Metro offers, where we see Shikha, performed by Shilpa Shetty, was with her friend Akash. They were at a railway station and they were waiting for the train. And they were talking about how can they travel together. So Akash cannot, I mean, Shikha travels in ladies compartment. And Akash cannot travel in that particular compartment for obvious reason. Then after deciding, Akash proposes that why don't you travel in general compartment? For that, you don't need to be a male. So, although this seems to be a very normal day-to-day conversation, but hindsight somehow it clicked me about the larger idea that the film tries to convey to me, which is considering women as general, considering women as human, and not over determining them or over defining them between more and less. Okay, so we are very much used to defining women between the binaries of more or less, between lack and excess. But here, I think women are being portrayed as a human being who are at par with any other social beings, have dilemma, have different kind of emotional faculties. Uh, but if I consider this as a threshold to my topic, where I'm going to talk about something which lies beyond the city center, I'll have to talk about this particular idea of feminist city. So if I'm negating this idea of women and the city, women, the city being liberating to women, what are the ideas I'm looking for? If I'm looking for a feminist city, what in particular I'm talking about? Uh, my recent read of the book called, just a minute. Um, yeah, of the book called What If Women Designed the City? This book by May East in 2024 talks about what if women designed the city. So this book very interestingly doesn't talk about the architecture, doesn't talk about like having public toilets for women, for kind of schools for women, although these are all remain important when we talk about feminist movement. But this book specifically talks about spaces. So if we talk about spaces, which are inclusive spaces, which are open spaces, which are non-binarized spaces, where one can really have conversation which transcends the binary. One can really be given the space to generate these ideas, which falls outside the binaries, to make us familiar with a different kind of narrative of inclusion, of intersectionality. This is what this book particularly talks about. And in the pursuit of elaborating how feminism can also be, like how and city are related, the author questions how city can how women can change the cartography of a city, how women can form a different narrative about the city. Uh, so if I talk about this feminist city, this eventually leads me to talk about space. I would talk about city centers first, and then I'll talk about space. So I'm also currently reminded of the recent controversy that the actress Dia Mirza was involved in, which was about patriarchy and climate change. I think she was of the view that patriarchy is solely responsible for the climate change and the ecological disruption that we see around. And so many controversies, criticism actually got Dia Mirza in a trap, where people were really talking about how can the male body be responsible for climate change. But we have to really understand that when we talk about patriarchy, we do not necessarily talk about a male body, channelizing a particular form of violence, a particular form of discrimination, but also patriarchy as an ideology where we have um, which has influence on almost all sectors of life, the ideology of patriarchy. When I talk about city center, or when I talk about the city actually. So this is what I am going to talk about. That I do not say that city centers are patriarchal because so and so male figures are there. It's being built by male architects. I do not say so. I talk about the ideology that the city centers are essentially made of. Uh, so now the question comes, what does this very idea of, why didn't I put city center? I put city center, I put an apostrophe there, just to re-emphasize the very idea of center. So we all know each and every city has its center, right? We call it CC or city center. But at the same time, we have a lot of periphery which are left outside that city center. So if you talk about bazaars, if you talk about markets, if you talk about fair in Bengali or Hindi we call Mela. So if you see these spaces, these are outside the periphery of city centers. Sorry, outside the boundaries, outside the the circles of city center. So I remember one of my friends, one of my colleagues, we were going to such bazaars. There's bazaar in Shiliguri, we have Hong Kong market. And we were going to that particular kind of bazaar, and and my friend was of the view that these bazaars are full of women's stuff, right? Everywhere you see, you get objects that are used by women. Where is this space for men? So that actually got me thinking, and I kept thinking about how can we look at these bazaars from a very not feminist, but feminine angle. Like we do get objects necessary for women in these bazaars, but how can we talk about the femininity that are involved in the nature of this bazaar? So this particular thinking actually led me to differentiate or have city centers and the bazaars, as something, as two different zones of, two different natures or zones of ideology that are involved. So if we can, just let me check the slides. Just a minute. Yes. So if you talk about, I have made this second slide where I question, is city liberating for women? What makes the city accommodating of others? Where does the city accommodate women? There's a typo here. And what is this feminist city? I have taken pictures of our Shiliguri city centers, and to just, to just locate or to just sense how is this positioned. We have something here, there's a symbol, circled one, a point one, which is city center. It says it has the city, it is the city's half, it is the city's center. Now, if I talk about the other citizens, I also talk about women as having emotionally as emotionally appealing, having emotional art. I talk about feminizing liberation. I talk about the female body and the general body. Sorry, I forgot to move the slides. But this is what I'm going to talk about today, which is city center as having a particular capitalist ideology, city center as having a very rigid mechanism at hand, city centers which are merely, I use the word transactional rather than say relational. So this is what city centers offers. It's kind of a building, it's a vertical building, very importantly, which has this particular hierarchy. It has a particular design to make you feel in a certain way. But significantly, I find this city center something which is completely mechanical in its way. And I do not only talk about the transaction and other thing. I'll come to the point where I really depart from this projection. But city center is initially about a capitalist ideology. If I move from city center towards the periphery of the city, I see bazaars. The bazaars that I'm talking about is largely, I think everyone is familiar with Sarojini Market, which is in Delhi. We are familiar with Esplanade or New Market, which is in Kolkata. We have here Hong Kong Market in Siliguri. So these are the markets are, piling up with women's stuff, with women's objects that are used by women. I'm not talking about the seller, by the way. I'm talking about women visiting the particular bazaars, the particular markets. So as opposed to city centers, which are mostly monolithic, mostly transactional, which looks at people sharply from a consumerist point of view, and which has a certain projection regarding the productivity of the time. So whenever we talk about city center, we talk about utilizing our time in so and so way. Now, if we are moving towards the bazaars, there is a different kind of mechanism going on. As far as I experience, bazaars are basically very relational. There you don't have anything to, there is a non-capitalist, there is an informal economy going on. There is there's a larger reliability on the very idea of relationality. So the relationality between the seller and the consumer, where a light is shed more on the consumer more as a human being than as a mere consumer who will come and buy things and go away. I find this very bazaars to be a space where a non-capitalist economy resides, where an informal economy of bazaar exists. And very interestingly, these local markets, I'm projecting it as something which can also be represented as global landmarks. So when I talk about bazaars, I talk also about these landmarks which are local, but at the same time it has a global appeal, right? So it's in a way to go with this hybrid word called globalization. This bazaar are signifying that very, if I say non-binarize, that very feminine way to deal with capitalism, to deal with a rigid ideology that this continuously, that this rapid world of capitalism is continuously the way it's channelizing empowerment, identity, uniqueness, or say equality. The bazaars are continuously existing in sharp contrast. Now, when I talk about this localized bazaar, let's say Hong Kong market, these are the pictures from Hong Kong market. And it talks about beyond these productive centers where women are having relationality, So when a woman is at that particular place, we say bargaining. So this very art of bargaining becomes very important for this talk, because it is bargaining where I can really find a different. I see bargaining as a performance more than anything else. So it's a performance between the consumer and the seller, where there's a negotiation and there is a continuous attempt to come to a point where both of their agency and both of their control can be maintained. So they talk about a certain they I would say they have a certain kind of projection, but they also has a very reciprocity of that projection, that there's this amazing balance between agency and control. So when I look at this as a performance and look at the seller and the consumer as performers who are on something and trying to negotiate through something, I see that it's not only a frame for me where someone is trying to save money or someone is trying to earn money, but also a larger frame where someone is a female body very significantly is trying to claim something. It has a lot to do with our economic, with women's, I would say, since I'm specifically focused onto women in this particular talk. So I'll talk about the female body. So the female body is particularly situated, the female body is particularly kind of claiming something, which is very important for my talk. So this economic literacy, this kind of value negotiation, this is what I think serve as a resistance, or if I can say, a feminist resistance uh, beyond the city centers. So I think I'll again mention a book by Doreen Massey. In that particular book called Space, Place, and Gender, uh, the author is of the view that spaces are never neutral, they are always already gendered. And I would like to quote just two lines from the book, which is the author says, it is not just about the spatial, it's not just about the spatial which is socially constructed, but the social is also spatially constructed. Spaces are gendered and through Spaces are gendered through and through, where women are always out of place. So this particular perspective, which makes us realize that the very arena of that particular performance is a liberating arena, an arena which is quite unfamiliar to the capitalist projection, an arena which talks about how space and society and bodies are in reciprocity, and how can they carve out something out of the negotiation, and how very significantly these are utterly flexible ways of dealing with life. So this flexibility, this informal dealings is something which seems very feminine to me, and I use the very word feminine not as something which is related to the female body inherently, but about, for me, this very word feminine is about the other versions that the world can have, the other versions apart from the dominant one, the other possibilities, I would say, apart from the dominant one that we can have. So when we say women as consumers, we talk about, we talk about city center, we talk about women, there are spaces where women can loiter, women can, buy things, but that projection, that identity is always already given. But when it comes to bazaars, I think these identities are a bit flexible. So it's just you are asking the price of some product, and if it doesn't suit your mind, and then you're going away, and then you're coming back. So I find this particular performance very interesting, very non-dominant, very flexible, and very feminine, if I can go with my term. Uh, Now, this open spaces, which are mostly a conversational spaces, which talks about the other centers of the city. And when I talk about other, I do mean the O in other, the capital O. Okay, so when I talk about the self-other binary, I talk about that other. So we talk about the other spaces, the other women, the other centers of the city. So through these other centers, we kind of dismantle the city center, the one center, right? Because if we come to this very art of bargaining, this is something which is conventionally attached to women. I'm not going into the debate that cannot men are there and they can also bargain things. Of course they can do, but I think it is beyond any conjecture that nowadays we have this very conventional popular conception where women are associated with the art of bargaining, with the art of loitering around the bazaars more than the men do. So this is also to me a kind of to some extent coming from a Bhadralok culture, where just as I mentioned and talked about the ideology, where the ideology is more of a patriarchal ideology, and this is not because that men are going less to these markets. This is not because of that very obvious linear gender parity, but because how inherently or essentially these markets are having different kind of narratives, whereas we have city center projecting a singular narrative, this as opposed to the bazaars, which are having very multi-dimensionality and a heterogeneous way of inclusivity, of intersectionality, and of the non-binarized vision that we can have. Um, if I talk about the woman in the market and extend it a bit towards the very idea of flaneurs or flanage. So this is pronounced both ways. So if we talk about flaneurs, then I have to go back to the very idea of flaneur, which is basically theorized by Walter Benjamin, who talks about flaneur is the man who wanders or roams around the cities of Paris, who roams around purposelessly, who looks at the people, and who is not utilizing the time in a way. So, what if we talk about flaneurs? What if we talk about the female version of what flaneur offers, that is flaneurs or flaneurs? This female version of flaneurs is the woman who is walking around the city without having any purpose. We know that not only women's productivity are not being normalized or being tagged or being identified or being categorized in so and so way, but also how women's leisure is also being categorized in certain ways. This kind of thought on flaneurs has been influenced by my recent read of the book Flaneurs Women Walk the City by Lauren Elkin, which is published in 2016. This book talks about how can the flaneurs be in reciprocal relationship with the city. It's not just how the city can change women, like the ideologies of feminism and the ideologies of a female body, how can the city prescribe how should a female body function. It's also the female body who redefines the city in a certain way. So I'm going to quote Lauren Elkin from her book. So she's saying that the flaneurs is a creative potential of the city and liberating possibility, which has the liberating possibility of a good walk. You don't need to crunch around in Gore-Tex to be subversive, but you have to just walk out of your front door. So this particular term, which is called flaneurs, has been theorized by Lauren Alkin. And I'm again gonna follow it up with a very brief quotation. It says, I walk because somehow it's like a reading. You are privy to these lives and conversations that have nothing to do with yours, but you can eavesdrop on them. Sometimes the voices are too loud, but there is always a companionship. So Elkin is of the view that she's relating this very idea of or considering this very idea of walking as something which is reading. Like when you walk around the city, you read the city, maybe your surroundings are not in according to what you are thinking, but you can definitely eavesdrop. You can definitely listen to the other loud voices around. So when you are a flaneurs, when you go to the market, I often see myself going to these markets without having any purpose. So even when we have melas around. Currently, we are having Sravani Mela at Shiliguri. So, on a very random day, if I propose someone, or if I just think like going to this mela without having a purpose, then it's kind of to some extent resemble the nature. I won't say flanneuse because it's maybe differently posited at times or described at times. But this very idea of flanneuse, a woman wandering, loitering around without having a purpose, without utilizing their leisure time, without thinking of productivity, without thinking of the what should I say, without thinking of this very productive capitalist idea of getting empowerment and be equal. This is where this very idea of news is sound resistance to me. The markets, which are very much horizontals in nature, and I do talk technically as well as metaphorically, that this markets are very horizontal in their way. So when you are a flanneuse loitering around, when you don't have any purpose to accomplish, when you don't have any expectations to meet, then you change the city with your walk. Then you claim that particular space. Then you claim then you claim your leisure as well. So for me, flanneuse, the wandering woman, the informal economy of bazaar, the kind of purposeless wandering, and also to some extent this very not to some extent but to a large extent that I've discussed, the art of bargaining, is something which stands as a feminist resistance in this very idea of city centers, which further channelizes the ideas of empowerment of identity sharply, I would say, in a pre-given, prescribed, and patriarchal form. When we talk about liberation, when we talk about empowerment, and again, I go back to what Dia Mirza was talking, particularly regarding climate change and patriarchy, that patriarchy as an ideology, patriarchy is not something which is inherently related to men, but as an ideology. So when I say this particular projection or this particular identity of flanneuse doesn't come with doesn't come with say with a palimpsest or kind of something which is previously said. Something flanneuse is inherently unpredictable, right? It's very random. So this randomness is something which acts as a political weapon when it comes to feminism and women or female body. So I'm going to briefly extend this flanneuse to talk about one more theoretical framework that I find very relevant here, which is I listened to Zoe Solvay's deliberation. It's a YouTube video, deliberation on female gaze. And since my doctoral studies is on female gaze, I'm very automatically biased to pick this anecdotes, which is talked about the female gaze, Zoe Solvay. So she actually divided, female gaze into three different subcategories, which is the first is feeling seen. So someone is feeling that someone is being seen. Then then she talks about the gauged gaze. The gauged gaze, that means someone is already aware that you are gazing at that particular person. So I know that you are gazing at me. So this awareness, this subjective consciousness comes with the third subcategory, which is returning the gaze. So when a flanneuse, so returning the gaze is basically when I'm aware that you're aware of your gaze, then with that gaze, I'm gazing back. So it's kind of a resistance. It's kind of a returning the gaze that you have offered me. So I think flanneuse to some extent is made of this, or say imply this politics of female gaze, where we have a woman wandering or loitering around, who is not only gazed but also knows how to return the gaze. In that pursuit of doing so, we not only question uh, largely the ideas of empowerment, liberation, equality, which are mostly pre-given and in sharply capitalist terms, but also we talk about the very nuances and the subtleties that the city may offer, the other narratives that can be formed by women, or when women claim the city. So these are the fragmented narratives that that is very experiential. And at the same time, when I talk about these fragmented narratives, in this particular talk, I try to bring them to a coherence where I can really weave these different fragmented narratives into one larger narrative, where uh, I'll be able to talk about capitalism, women, the definitions that capitalism offers, the successful women, the empowered women, uh, where while I'm transcending these very binaries, or these very tags, I would say, the capitalist tags, I'm going towards the periphery. I'm finding that the peripheries, with its utterly informal and flexible ways of of establishing a relationship between the city and the person, or between the city and its citizens, is something which is very appealing when we think of it in terms of news, in terms of a woman, in terms of female body, if not a feminist body. So this is all about it. I'm so sorry if I have deviated from my talk at times, but this is it. Yeah, so thank you so much. I hope I have not bored you with my talk.
Not at all. Much, Mousumi, for such a deeply insightful talk. Uh, I hope I am audible. And
Yes, ma'am, you are.
you have given us a vital, yes. So you have given us a vital framework for understanding how women negotiate agency and power outside the metropolitan gaze. So
Yes.
thank you. So to kick off our discussion, I just want to ask that how do you see these localized non-urban strategies of bargaining, quote unquote, actively challenging or reshaping the border? Uh, More about institutionalized feminist movements across South Asia.
Across South Asia, I think uh, that would be a border space to cover. But I think more or less this idea of bazaar is very prevalent in South Asia countries. But I think I've recently come across this term called petty haggling, which is somehow related to bargaining, the art of bargaining, if I can say. You will see that this very art, you will see at times men are not likely to bargain, and when I talk like that, I don't mean it in generic terms. Obviously, exceptions are there, but as we know, that exception doesn't say the rule. But the thing is, this very, when you talk about, I also look at feminism nowadays more as a reception than as projection, I would say. I'll simplify myself. So when I talk about the local markets, I talk about a binary that resides or that exists between the city center and the local markets. So when you say Hong Kong markets or New Market or Esplanade, you'll see that eventually there is a conception behind. When I utter New Market, I'll go to New Market instead of going to city center. There is a larger conception that's going behind, that markets are full of this or that market has, or if you're bargaining, then at time you are scolded upon, you are saying that why are you bargaining. So it's not looked at from a very celebrated angle that someone is having a negotiation over economy, but more from the point of view like, why are you bargaining? Why are you spending your time on unnecessary things? So this, and I'm very cautious about these perspectives which are offered mainly by the patriarchal ideology. And I talk again about ideology. So I think that if we gradually change our perspective to look at the very at local bazaars or the bargaining or say flenews from a different perspective other than the male ones, other than the patriarchal one, gradually it changes the paradigm. And that to some extent will somehow, inculcate the values which are left unfocused. Maybe.
Thank you. Thank you for your elaborate answer. And we open the floor to our audience on Zoom and
Yeah.
also on YouTube. Please go ahead with your query if you have, or just you want to speak something. Yeah,
Um,
Pratishtha, you can just unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible and visible.
yes, you are.
Yes, you
Hi,
are.
my name is Pratishtha. I am a PhD research scholar at the Department of English, Himachal Pradesh University. Thank you, Ms. Moshami. Beautiful insight into how women navigate the gaze, and love the conception of, how we've reversed the idea of the pink tax that we have to pay by,
Yes.
you've turned it into an equivalent as petty haggling. I
Yeah.
have a question for you. And since we've talked about flaneur and flaneuse, which are French terms, bonsoir, monsieur et mademoiselle.
Yeah.
My question for you is if the traditional idea of flaneur, which is defined by his ability to blend into the city and
Yeah.
disappear, that level of anonymity that he gets to sustain,
Yeah.
does a flaneuse truly exists if the society forces her to always remain acutely aware of being seen? The gaze that you were talking about, that women are always aware of the fact that they are being seen, because the historical idea is something else.
Yeah.
And in contemporaneity, do you think it is utopian, difficult to execute?
Thank you, Pratishtha. I think it is difficult to execute. Anything in feminism is difficult to execute initially, but I think the way I look feminism, I don't look feminism sharply from a very revolutionary point of view. I think the thought is right here with us, and if we can think about like the leisure that if like let me narrow the framework down to our very household. So if you see your mom is taking rest, the way we are conventionally brought up, if someone watches us taking rest and having our leisure time, that person would very likely to say, go get your work done, why are you wasting your time, right? So this is the very this would be a narrow form of what you're talking about flanneus, that even if we want to spend our time without doing anything, so that is it, that is the end of the discussion, right? But that should be but I do think that it is to some extent, I won't say utopian, but it's very difficult to establish. And it has its very linkage. It has its, we are very much familiar, though unconscious, but familiar with the structures that we have. But to overthrow this structure and to think something from a different angle is also something which will worth us. Like it's something that is worthy enough. Like the way we think about it, I think somewhere down the line, some group of people will execute that. But if we leave this thinking right here, and if it's able to inculcate further questions, generate further answers, then to some extent we are feminist and we are successful, maybe. Yes.
So do you see it as a deliberate act of reclamation,
Yes,
be it
yes, definitely.
social, political, or personal?
Yes,
All right.
yes. Fully, fully.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you,
All right.
Pratishtha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pratishtha, for such insightful question. And thank you, Moshami, for handling such, critical concept with a smooth wing. So thank you. One more question we have from YouTube that
Yes, ma'am.
Denis Kandiyoti.
Hmm.
I hope you have heard about him. Denis
Mm-hmm.
Kandiyoti has a concept, classical concept of the patriarchal bargain.
Hmm.
It often assumed as a
I think it's
yeah,
from Wasim
yeah,
Akhtar.
Washim. Yeah. Washim, will you please ask? Yeah, we can. Actually, I am asking one question.
I think he's not audible.
Sure,
I
sure.
can't I can't hear him. Can you turn your video off and then hope we can hear?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Washim. Just go on with your query. We will try to
Okay,
hear it.
okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mousumi, for your insightful talk. First of all, uh,
Thank you.
it's not a question, rather an observations, and I asked for clarification from you. You talked about dismantling and debunking the binarized narratives of city centers and bazaars, a male and female space, and emphasizes one more flexible, ambiguous space where women can exert their agency better. However, you end up essentializing the male and female binary by saying female are believed to be more to bargaining, and again have said bazaars or spaces beyond the city centers where the female can perform her feminine agency better. But the example with which you started your talk, or at the outset of your talk, you have said that mostly the commodities sold in a bazaar are used for women or are mostly used by women. So my question to you is, don't you think that the women who go to bazaar, are actually the product of that very consumerist culture that uh, the consumerist culture want them to be a product that go to bazaar and become one of that very production. So that's my question for you.
I think I did not quite get the second fragment of your question, but I'll talk about the first one and let's see if the second I can guess. So you talked about essentializing this gendered binaries, right? As I kept on saying that this, when I talk about patriarchy, I do not talk about male particularly. I do not talk about the male body or men or the masculinity. I talk about the ideology that is laying almost on, everywhere. Whenever we like, what if I say that a particular film which is being filmed by maybe by a woman, or the relationship you have with a particular woman is can be very patriarchal at times, right? Or the relationship I can have with a woman, that can also, my relationship with my mother can also be very patriarchal. So in that sense, what I do talk about is the channelization, or is the residue that we have in us about patriarchy, about patriarchal codes of conducts, and also how that conception of patriarchy has inherently has been embedded in us. So this is from one perspective, I will say I'm not essentializing, rather I am trying to march this two different narratives regarding city and women. I'm not talking about the bazaars, which are essentially female. I'm talking about why can't we feminize city centers? So I'm talking about why can't we have a more inclusive way of understanding the city's centers? Why don't we have the centers as opposed to the center? So this is what I was essentially focusing on.
Okay,
Uh,
I got your answer, but my
yeah,
question was different. I asked
yeah,
you that the instance that you gave at the outset of your lecture, where you said
yeah,
that some of your friends have told you that um, in bazaars, mostly the things sold is for women,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
So
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
my query is whether that women, that space of bazaar allows them that agency, or they become that very product of a consumerist culture where they are actually performing a subjectiveness, rather subsidiary role. That's my question.
A subsidiary or secondary role? Uh,
Secondary role, because you were talking about agency and asserting selfhood, but at the end of the day they are like being promoted to go to that bazaar, because the things that are sold, you said, mostly for women, right? So if
yeah,
the women are going to uh, buy those things, they end up being the consumer of that very product that the
yes,
consumerist want to sell.
yes.
So that's quite contradictory to me. I am
No, no, no.
asking you
There's
to
no
clarify that.
problem.
Yeah.
Women being consumers, there's no problem in that. So let me clarify. So if I call women consumer, there's no problem here. Okay. But when you don't have that very medium of relationality, when you don't have that flexibility, when you are a mere consumer and nothing more than that, so there is this, that is where we lack a space where we can deal with other narratives of the transactions, where we can deal with the other narratives that your relationship may have. So that is what I'm talking about. Women going to bazaars, women having their stuffs there and going to bazaars, and there's no problem in it, right? So it's not something that they are, we have to, at the end of the day, identify each other with many things. But we are very reciprocal beings, social beings. But at the same time, we have to make sure that women, uh, it's not about talking women as something which is what should I say? But it's not something. It's associated with women, and there is no harm if I say that women go to the market and kind of buy things of their own according to their own necessity, and if they come up with if I come up with the very idea of bargaining or the very idea of loitering around, that is where I find this kind of things taking place a bit politically. Yeah, that is what I was talking about. I
Okay,
think
thank you, ma'am.
Pratishtha has
Thank
also
you.
raised.
Mhm.
Pratishtha has
Uh,
something to say, I think.
Yes, yes, thank you. I wanted to, with all due respect, I wanted to add something
Yeah.
to what you are saying, Miss Marshami. I wanted to
Yes.
say that this is the same consumerist culture that
Yeah.
imposes certain unrealistic beauty standards on women.
Yeah.
And women are interpolated into thinking that they need the
Definitely.
things that they buy. So
Definitely.
there will always be counter arguments to these arguments,
Yes.
and I think an end of the debate, I think we'll find an end to this discussion where we let people choose what they want to
Yeah.
choose, you know.
Yeah. 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 Definitely.
And each to his own kind of mindset where nobody is
Yeah.
getting harmed in any
Yeah.
capacity
Yeah. Yeah.
whatsoever.
Definitely. You have touched very
So
beautifully the crux of feminism,
So,
where
as much
that,
as Mr. Washim might feel that, you know, women end up being, pawns in that
yeah. Yeah.
consumerist
Yeah. Yeah.
culture, at the same time, we are being played as well. The capitalist,
Yes.
consumerist society is playing us really well into that narrative,
And
where
the
we
most beautiful
feel that
part
we
of it
need
is
these
that you
things.
can't. The most beautiful part of it is you can't overthrow any narrative. Each and every narrative exists equally, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Pratishtha, for adding to this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pratishtha and Wasim, and also thanks to Moshumi. If anyone else has some question, please go ahead. Okay, I was asking a question from
Yes, ma'am.
YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
Deniz kandi hoti. Priti talked about the classical concept patriarchal bargain. How does we see this, today's topic beyond the city center, re-theorize this concept with the matriarchy? I mean,
With
he
the
is asking
matriarchy.
about the shifting, yes, shifting from patriarchy to matriarchy. He's asking about it. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, patriarchal difference is patriarchal bargaining is a different thing. When we call patriarchal bargaining, it's different from what I was talking about, the art of bargaining. But from patriarchy to matriarchy, if you talk about, I think the larger aim of feminism is to have a world without feminism. Is not it? I think so. That a world where we don't need feminism any further, where we can be really equal. So this is what feminism aims at. And very interestingly, when we talk about inclusivity, when we talk about intersectionality, when we talk about men, we don't want to be dominant over men when we are a feminist. So in that sense, what feminism you know, advocates for is the non-binarized space where we don't have any one center, where we don't have any this or that binary, when we can come to the point of the in-between and we can talk about different narratives that this in-between space is offering us. So maybe I won't say that I'm going from patriarchy to matriarchy. I'm less likely to go there. Rather, I will say that we want, or largely as a feminist, we want a space where both of us can be equal, or any people with different kind of sexual orientations, we can all be in the middle and germinate many thoughts beyond the binaries.
True. I hope he got his answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we draw public lecture 61st to a close, so it is time to wrap up today's session. I extend my deepest gratitude to our speaker, Ms. Mousumi Hazra. She is really a dear to me. That's why I was trying to affiliate her with the Miss or ma'am and anything else. But she's really a sweetheart. So yeah, thank you so much for your brilliant and deeply engaging talk. And thank you that you are not just offering us a nascent critical concept, but you gave that, okay, a researcher can do anything with this concept. So this is a really good thing. And this is what the Cultural Studies Research Forum need. And my sincere thanks to the team Valat and also our beloved Dr. Kalani Valat, who actually who was today here, and I was shocked. Okay, ma'am is there.
Yes.
Actually, ma'am is too occupied with
Right.
her schedule, so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is
She has been
really,
doing a
really
lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
She is the angel to me.
Yeah,
At
definitely.
least to me, she is the angel. Okay, so finally, a big thanks to our audience like Pratishta, Wasim. You all made today's session a really engaging one. So
True.
thank you all and have a wonderful evening. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay,
very much,
Mousumi,
Valla.
with
Thank you
your
so much.
permission.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. I wholeheartedly thank Pratishta, who's joining here from Shimla, Wasim, and I do thank Cultural Studies Research Forum for giving me this space. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm ending today's session. Thank
Sure,
you.
ma'am.